A lone wolf and she-wolf suddenly find themselves besieged by an aggressive pack. As fangs clash and survival hangs in the balance, a chilling tale of resilience, mystery, and a hidden human agenda begins to unravel. But you won't believe what happens next. In the heart of Alaska's wilderness, a lone wolf and a she-wolf stood on a ridge, their breaths misted in the frigid air. Suddenly, the ominous howls of a wolf pack echoed through the forest. A large wolf pack slunk from the dense woods, circling the pair. Snarls ripped through the cold night. The lone wolf and she-wolf braced themselves. They knew that this land was not theirs, and the pack's message was clear. Intruders were not welcome. The pack attacked with primeval rage. Tussocks of wild grass flew, and growls filled the air as the fight commenced. The lone wolf fought fiercely. He tried to protect the she-wolf, but the pack was relentless. Under the cold gaze of the moon, a battle for survival in Alaska's harsh wilderness had begun. As the lone wolf and she-wolf faced the relentless onslaught of the attacking pack, they sensed something deeply unsettling about their aggressors. These were not ordinary wolves. Their movements were too precise, too calculated. It was as if an unseen force had tampered with the very essence of their wild nature. The pair couldn't fully comprehend what was amiss, but their instincts screamed that this was more than a territorial dispute. The she-wolf noticed the attackers' unusual coordination and aggression. The lone wolf felt a growing unease as he parried and dodged their relentless advances. In those moments that felt so close to the end, they briefly remembered their beginnings together. Months before the brutal attack, the lone wolf had wandered away from his original pack. He was driven by an instinct to explore and carve out his own territory. In his travels, he encountered the she-wolf. She was a resilient survivor with a coat like the winter's first snow. She too had left her pack, following the mysterious call of the wild. Together, they ventured into new territories, seeking an area to call their own. Prey was scarce, and the winters were harsh. Yet, their companionship gave them strength. Their arrival in the territory where the attack occurred was not a choice, but a necessity. Winter was coming, and they needed to feed. There were wolf signs around, but they were old. The two assumed the area had been left alone by a wandering pack and didn't pay it much attention. But, unbeknownst to them, this territory was fiercely guarded by the local pack, and they were unyielding in their claim over the frozen forests and rivers. Only their desperate will to survive allowed the pair of wolves to leave the ridge with their lives. Both were wounded and weakened. They trudged through the deep snow with limping gaits, trying to put as much distance as possible between them and the pack. The harsh Alaskan winter showed no mercy. Despite their injuries, the wolves' instinct to survive burned fiercely. They moved stealthily and used every ounce of their remaining strength to stay ahead of the pursuing pack. But unbeknownst to them, they weren't the only two key players in this scenario. Someone else was in pursuit, but for a completely different reason. Jack Harper was an investigative journalist with a knack for dragging hidden truths, kicking and screaming, into the light. He sat in his small, cluttered office in Anchorage, reviewing his files. His latest obsession was a series of rumors about a clandestine research facility in the heart of Alaska, supposedly experimenting with wolf genetics for unknown, possibly military purposes. Jack's curiosity was piqued not just by the secrecy surrounding the facility, but also by the ethical implications of such experiments. His desk was littered with reports, scientific papers on genetic modification, and maps of remote Alaskan regions. The walls were adorned with newspaper clippings of his previous exposés, reminders of battles he'd fought in the pursuit of truth. Despite hitting numerous dead ends, Jack's resolve never wavered. His sources spoke in hushed tones, about enhanced abilities being bred into these wolves. In Jack's mind, this raised serious questions about the line between scientific advancement and moral responsibility. Each piece of information he unearthed seemed to point to a larger, more complex puzzle. His latest lead had brought him to the wilderness, where a wolf attack on 2 hikers had recently occurred. Something about the incident didn't sit right with him. The aggression displayed by the pack was atypical, almost as if they were driven by something more than natural instincts. As he prepared for his journey into the Alaskan wilderness, Jack couldn't shake off the feeling that this story was bigger than anything he'd tackled before. In his own quest for the truth, he trekked through the same unforgiving wilderness the 2 wolves were roaming, uncovering clues about the secret research facility. Each new piece of evidence added to the tension of his investigation. The story he was chasing was not just about wolves and scientific experiments. It was about survival, ethics, and the delicate balance of nature. Then, Jack Harper stumbled upon a revelation that would turn his investigation on its head. Hidden away from prying eyes was a deserted, derelict cabin. He couldn't find it on any map, but one of his sources had told him it would be there. Jack watched the cabin for 3 days, making sure that it was really deserted. Then, he ventured inside. Amongst the dust and decay, Jack found a trove of abandoned research papers and equipment. The papers detailed extensive genetic experiments on wolves. These went far beyond any normal scientific endeavor. The research was aimed at enhancing the physical and sensory capabilities of wolves for unspecified purposes through selective breeding. The most shocking discovery came when Jack found a series of tagged locations on a map. These correlated precisely with the recent movements of the aggressive wolf pack that attacked the hikers. And they were close by. These wolves had been specifically bred to display abnormal aggression and excessive territorial behavior. Jack realized that these wolves were not predators by nature, but victims of human ambition and recklessness. His heart raced as he grasped the gravity of his discovery. The story he had been chasing was not just a tale of wild animals in the Alaskan wilderness, but a stark example of the consequences of unchecked scientific experimentation. This explosive revelation not only put the entire research project in a questionable light, but also raised urgent questions about the moral responsibility of those behind it. As Jack prepared to bring this information to light, he understood the risks involved in exposing such a controversial truth. The world needed to know the truth behind the altered nature of these wolves, and Jack was determined to be the one to tell it. The moment Jack Harper released his explosive expose, the story sent shockwaves across the nation. Major news outlets picked up on the narrative. Headlines trumpeted the unethical genetic experiments on wolves in the Alaskan wilderness. The article detailed every facet of the clandestine research facility's activities, from the manipulation of wolf genetics to the resultant behavioral changes in the animals. Public reaction was immediate and intense. Animal rights activists and environmental groups called for fast action, staging protests and demanding accountability. Scientists and ethicists debated the moral ramifications of such research, questioning the boundaries of human intervention in nature. For Jack, the story's impact went beyond professional achievement. It was a vindication of his belief in the power of journalism to uncover truth and initiate change. While the lone wolf and his she-wolf companion were resting and healing, the pursuing pack were recognized as victims of human experimentation. In a cooperative effort between scientists and conservationists, the pack was carefully relocated to a protected reserve. As for the lone wolf and she-wolf, they found sanctuary in a remote part of the Alaskan wilderness, far from the threats they had faced. The scars of their ordeal lingered, yet with each passing day they grew stronger. Their bonds deepened. The valley, once the territory of the altered wolf pack, now became theirs. It was a bittersweet victory, claimed through endurance and resilience. As the seasons changed, the pair thrived. In their third season together, their family grew. The she-wolf gave birth to a litter of pups. The sight of the young wolves tumbling and playing in the meadows indicated the start of a new pack. The wolves had created a legacy that would echo through the generations. After his groundbreaking expose, Jack Harper's career soared to new heights. Renowned for his fearless journalism, he became a respected voice in environmental and ethical reporting. His work sparked global dialogues about wildlife conservation and scientific responsibility. Despite numerous accolades, Jack remained grounded. He was driven by a deep commitment to truth and justice and continued to pursue stories that mattered. Jack's relentless pursuit of truth cemented his legacy as a champion for the voiceless and a guardian of the natural world. There are so many stories about human intervention in the balance of nature, resulting in chaos. Do you have one? Tell us about it in the comments. We'd love to hear. For now, though, we're out of here. Catch you in the next video.